In tonight's headlines, MTR fares to rise by just over 3% in June under the fare adjustment mechanism, which includes the affordability cap. Chief Executive John Lee says national security offenders should not expect early release. And the former chairman of the Chinese Football Association is jailed for life for taking bribes.
MTR commuters will have to fork out more starting in June. The railway operator is raising fares for the second consecutive year, this time by just over 3%. The increase could have been as high as 5% based on last December's wage and payroll statistics. But under the affordability cap arrangement, the rise is limited to 3.09%. This man found the increase outrageous. It is quite unacceptable because there should be better service with the fare hike, but there are frequent service disruptions, he complained. Even though a fare hike is acceptable, it shouldn't be that high, this student said. He noted that the cost of living is also increasing at the same time. Currently, residents can receive a subsidy amounting to 1/3 of their public transportation expenses if they spend over $400 each month. The chairman of the Legislative Council's Transport Panel, Ban Chen, said the accumulative increment should be scrapped every 2 years and urged the operator to freeze the price of frequent user passes for 3 years. The MTR Corporation said fare increases have to strike a balance between travelers' affordability and the company's need to maintain, upgrade, and renew the railway system. The early bird discount will be extended for another year. Janice Lowe, Cable News. Activist Ma Chun-man, who is convicted of inciting secession, has become the first prisoner to be denied early release since the domestic national security law took effect last Saturday. Ma, popularly known as Captain America 2.0, was sentenced to 5 years and 9 months behind bars 3 years ago and was supposed to walk free yesterday because of good behavior. But under the new law, he has to serve the full term. In his weekly press briefing, the city's top leader emphasized that those jailed for endangering national security should not expect an early release.
National security offenses are grave offenses. No one should flout the law, and no one should expect a remission when those offenses are involved, unless the Commissioner of Correctional Services is satisfied that a remission will not be contrary to national security. We need to send a clear message. For someone convicted of those offenses, then normally there is no remission of sentence.
Lee said national security laws are much harsher in some countries that criticized Hong Kong's legislation.
We so confidently and openly written the protection and safeguard of human rights and freedoms into our law, which may not be the case in their own country's law. They turn a blind eye to all this. And some countries, senior officials, whether former or present, have sometimes take pride in saying that they lie, they cheat, and they steal, and they have full set of training courses for all these things. So when people do all these attacks, think not just twice, but thrice. Who are the people who are saying this?
Lee added that the government will continue to explain to the business sector that the law promotes stability and security. Janice Lowe, Cable News. Chief Executive John Lee said now that Article 23 legislation has been passed, the administration can focus on boosting the economy. The strategy includes strengthening the city's competitiveness and working on developing the domestic economy, with a focus on tourism.
全年訪港嘅旅客有望係達到5000萬人次。
We expect the total arrival figures to increase to 50 million throughout the year, And according to estimation, 1.5 million tourists can help contribute an addition of 0.1% to the GDP. So tourism can help promote the economy.
Lee said he was happy to see that the tourism industry has continued adding value by coming up with new attractions for visitors to provide them with different forms of experience.
The former chairman of the Chinese Football Association has been sentenced to life in prison for corruption. A court in Hebei province found Chen Shu-yuan guilty of accepting more than 80 million yuan in bribes between 2019 and last year. Apologizing to fans, Chen said corruption in football should not be tolerated, adding that his actions led to serious consequences for the sport at national level. 2 other football figures were also jailed for bribery. Former association official Chen Yongliang received a 14-year term, and an 8-year sentence was imposed on Dong Zheng, former Chinese Super League general manager. Also jailed was Yu Hongchen, former president of the Chinese Athletics Association. He was sentenced to 13 years behind bars for accepting bribes of 22 million yuan.
China has hit out at Japan after Tokyo approved the export of new fighter jets it is developing with Britain and Italy. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said neighboring countries are growing increasingly concerned as Japan raised defense spending and eased restrictions on the export of weapons.
In
the latest move on selling arms, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi said next-generation fighter jets may be exported, but the government will have to approve each sale. The planes can be sold to countries which have defense agreements with Japan and are not engaged in conflict at the time of sale. It's Japan's latest move away from its pacifist principles and has caused alarm in neighboring countries, especially those attacked by Tokyo before and during the Second World War.
After 5 failed attempts, the United Nations Security Council has voted in favor of an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during the remaining days in the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and the release of hostages held by Hamas. The United States withdrew its diplomatic cover for Israel and abstained.
All barriers to aid delivery need to be lifted. We have not yet seen the improvements that we need to get more aid in. The Council's message today is an important one, and I reiterate, we call for it to be implemented immediately.
The UN decision was cautiously welcomed by Palestinians in Gaza. But after almost 6 months of constant Israeli bombings and with little food, they want a permanent truce to end the attacks that have killed almost 32,500 Palestinians. Israel reacted angrily to the resolution. It accused its staunch ally, the US, abandoning its policy on Israel and cancelled a high-level visit to Washington.
Security Council resolutions are binding, and if Israel is not going to implement it, then it is the duty of the Security Council to use Chapter 7 to take measures and punitive measures in order to make them obey the resolution of the Security Council.
Armed gangs in the Haitian capital have set fire to a sprawling open-air garage, destroying vehicles and goods. The facility in Port-au-Prince was used by mechanics and vendors to store their goods. Damage was extensive, and many were in despair after losing their livelihoods. Everything was burned down, said Elidor Samuel as he tried to salvage what he could. We are living in the worst of times. This country is unbelievable. Hopes for stability in the Caribbean nation rose when the unelected prime minister stepped down. But a delay in setting up a transitional council to choose new leaders has allowed gang violence to continue thriving.
Hong Kong's exports and imports declined in February after rising for 4 consecutive months. Outbound shipments dropped 0.8% from a year earlier to 284 billion Hong Kong dollars. It was a sharp drop from the 33% surge in January. Imports fell 1.8% to 325 billion Hong Kong dollars, compared with a 22% rise in January. The trade deficit for last month was over 41 billion Hong Kong dollars. Both import and export performance failed to meet expectations.